Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning into this episode of my podcast, The Learning Mind, all about the journeys people take to get to now, demonstrating some of the adversity they may have gone through, how they did it, and where they are right now. It's a journey, so even where they are in this journey, there could be more to come. So I want to say a big welcome to Zoe Goodchild today. Thank you so much for joining me here. How are you?
I'm really good today, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's a podcast I've really been looking forward to joining in with, so looking forward to this session.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate the running around that you had to do to get here as well today. Thank you. So just for the listeners, Zoe works with high growth business recruitment agency owners. So helping them optimize growth, time, and cost savings, particularly those looking to supercharge growth whilst working less hours, which sounds great because I know particularly, Zoe, I'm sure you'll cover it, that those in the recruitment agencies tend to work very long hours and very hard for what they do. I've heard that. Zoe is the founder of Innovate Accountancy and is an author, speaker, and herself a podcast host. So welcome again. So if I may ask you, just do you want to introduce yourself now do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, so I have been a business owner for 11 years now. Come across my fair amount of challenges that I've had to go through. I started off with my background. I had quite a difficult childhood. I had a lot of things in my childhood. I was in the social care system from the age of 3.5.
Wow.
And then I got adopted. I was one of the lucky ones to get adopted with my brother at 5 years old. There was a lot of sort of challenges within that itself anyway, as you can imagine. My dad went to prison. My mum decided to sort of almost kind of give up the children to wait for him to come out of prison. So there was lots of going back and forth into courts and things like that.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very, very traumatic sort of start to life itself. But I think that's kind of given me some of the coping mechanisms and strengths to draw upon that I've used then in later life to be able to overcome challenges.
Mm.
On. It definitely, I'm a firm believer that your past doesn't define your future. So whatever has happened in your past, you can overcome that and you can achieve whatever you want to achieve with the right mindset, the right coping mechanisms. So
I love that. Yes, because I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think, is there a good childhood? Yes, probably. But, there's always, for every good childhood, there's somebody who's had a difficult one. And one of the things that for me, I always emphasize with anybody I see either, who starts talking about their family life, it's not, the parents who were maybe to blame at the start, but as you get older, you start to realize they were only human.
yeah,
And, it's self-perpetuating, I find that, it's come, what did they experience in their childhood? Da, 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 da. So it goes back. So even having said that, I love what you said is that you learned some really good coping strategies and mechanisms. Are you able to share any here with the audience?
yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say from a young age. It's something obviously I've only realised in recent years, and obviously bringing up
Hindsight.
my own children.
Mm.
In that certain things like compartmentalizing some things that have happened, not permanently, because I think these sort of deep issues need to be resolved, not just sort of stored away and they're there to be triggered upon at a later date.
Yes.
But definitely being able to reframe negative experiences and use them almost as fuel and motivation to create something positive out the back of it. I think just being able to maintain positivity and optimism, I think, is really important. And that doesn't matter what has happened to you in the past, you can always learn from experiences. I think every challenge and every obstacle is an opportunity to learn and move on from, and just being able to build resilience and strength, I think, within yourself.
Yeah, I do like the reframing, because I think that's a really important one, because certainly, you know, when you're going through something, particularly as a child, you don't know any different. And to you it's reality and it's truth. But actually, as you get older, you look back and you think, hold on a moment, was it? What else was going on? Because when we're children, it's all about us. It's all
Yeah.
about us, whether it's in the good stuff or it's the not good stuff. So I like the idea of being able to reframe it, you know. That's really good. And the idea that you can, you know, this positive mindset, and that's not so easy, I don't think.
It takes a lot of work, I think, to be able to get doing that, doesn't it? But I think the reframing, instead of sort of saying, why are there all of these things happening to me? Just reframing that into, what is the lesson that I'm learning from this, so that I can take that away. And a lot of it is about how you react to things in your life rather than the situation itself, for you to be able to come out the other side of it better. So
Mm. So when you do experience stuff now, so say for instance, you know, well, it's going to happen inevitably. Something's going to upset the apple cart, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
so so I think the immediate reaction is to go, oh, and react to it, isn't it? But it's then, how do you recover from it? How do you do that?
Well, so this year itself has been one of my toughest years in my business. There's been a lot of things going on that have sort of either strengthened my ability to reframe things, because there's been so much that has happened that it's very, very easy to take personally, saying, these things are happening to me. Is it because I've done something wrong? Did I deserve this?
Yes.
Am I now good enough? And it just really makes you doubt yourself and question your self-worth, especially with sort of a background like mine, which is those sort of issues are prevalent anyway. So just being able to see that in a different light, not take it personally, and think more pragmatically about it. I think just being able to come up with a solution to whatever the challenge has come across to you is really, really important. But remaining positive is really hard, and it's definitely something that needs a lot of work on. But get there, you can overcome anything.
Yeah, and I don't know what your strategy would be, but for me, sometimes going to bed and then waking up the next morning with a, right, can do, so I've got to do something, is the approach I take. What about you? What's your
Yeah.
strategy to deal with it?
Yeah,
Coffee, wine.
no, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, especially this year, I've said, right, I'm going to allow myself a set period of time to not wallow in it, but to let my emotion out, allow myself to feel the emotion of what is happening, because it is upsetting. And then say, right, I've put that to bed now. And then move on. What can I now do? What can I focus on to carry on and move forward? Because you can't sit there playing it over and over in your mind, wondering what could have been done differently. It's important to learn from the experience, of course, but you can't go back and change it. So you have to be able to move forward and take those lessons forward with you. So if something similar happens again, you can approach it differently and hopefully have a better outcome. But
Yeah, and I think as an adult, and when I talk as an adult, I'm usually generally speaking over 30, because up until 30, our brain's still learning and developing and growing, and we're still finding our place in the world, aren't we? 20s is about having fun and it doesn't matter, and just being in with your crowd. And then in the 30s, we start to, I don't know, take on some seriousness. I've no idea, but we do start to think about, you know, our future more, shall we say. So I do get that. But before then, I think, you know, the responses we give can be, you know, very much in the moment still, can't they? So I think as an adult, it's great that you can do that. So if I could take you back to say your teenage years, because let's face it, that's when we start to become who we're going to be. And we're making mistakes left, right, and centre.
yeah.
And obviously for some, they're having more difficulties than most. And from what you're saying, you did. What would you say were the key learnings you got during your teenage years that have helped you today?
Oh, that sounds like a quite a tricky question. My teenage years, I was
Mm.
very, very in love with education, in love with reading, in love with a real zest for life, but a real zest for education. And I threw myself into anything and everything that I could learn. Just wanted to soak everything up that I could.
Brilliant.
Relationships wise, say with friends and peer groups, I always struggled a bit. Because I think I still had those unresolved issues.
Yeah.
And I was still, I mean, at teenage years is quite difficult anyway, isn't it? You've got hormones
Mm.
raging, all sorts of things going on. It's
I'll talk about the drug, sex, and rock and roll period for teenagers because
oh, I didn't have that.
we're all trying to fit in. I don't know that I did any of those, but there you go. But it's all about trying to fit in and find your tribe, and you do
Yeah,
whatever, and you'll do things that aren't even good for you, aren't you? To
definitely.
fit
Yeah,
in. But yeah, I do love the learning and education because that's got to be a really big one for you,
yeah,
running your own business because you're constantly learning and being educated.
yeah. I mean, I was quite throughout my high school years initially, I was very much trying to fit in. I was trying to get in with the let's say the popular crowds and do this, that, and the other. It kind of felt like I didn't really fit in anywhere. But
Mm.
it was, I'm not sure what triggered it, but there was something where I just decided I wasn't going to try and fit in. I was going to try and just be more me. And I did at some point stick out like a sore thumb. I could bring up some old photos that would surprise people. But but that transformed my college years because that just brought out an inner confidence that I attracted the people that knew me, not who I wanted to portray I was. And I think at that age that's a really difficult thing to do.
Well, I'm in awe of that, to be honest, Zoe, because it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I start to say, actually, this is about me now, sort of thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
to do it in your teenage years is very courageous, I think. And I think owning who you were at that age is just so powerful. Yeah, I'm in awe. Can you tell? Took me a
I
lifetime.
So my adoptive parents were amazing. They were my biggest cheerleaders.
Mm,
My biggest influencer was probably my granny. Sadly, I lost her last year, which was a
sorry.
big obstacle to overcome. But she was the only person that I'd ever felt that had zero judgment. No matter what I did, there was never any judgment there, and it
Mm.
allowed me that capacity to be who I was and not fear that judgment from her. Um, which I think helped a lot because at that point I did spend a lot of time with her, so it enabled me to go and do what I wanted, and I knew that nothing was going to shock her or disappoint or anything like that, which I think is a big thing for a lot of people at that age, isn't it? Am I going to have disappointed or let people down? And then that
You
they'll
need that, don't you? Somebody who's non-judgmental, or at least on your side. They may still have a judgment, but they're willing to allow you to make the mistakes you need to, because we only become who we're going to be by making mistakes, don't we?
Mm.
In all honesty.
Yeah. Well, we won't learn otherwise, will we? So
We would never learn. Absolutely. So I'm loving that. And I'm sorry for your loss because that's not just a loss, is it? That's a big loss. And I appreciate you sort of mentioning her. So we'll just, we'll just send her a little bit of love for being here today because I bet she's got her eye on you. My belief, not necessarily yours, but that's okay.
I do believe that,
So
yeah.
she was your stabilizing, she was a bit your anchor then as you were going
Yeah,
through.
yeah, she definitely was.
So I'm hearing that this you almost blossomed in your teenage years, which is amazing when you think what you had to go through earlier on, isn't it? And I know appreciate your adoptive parents really facilitated that. Um, so I think, when I think about what you've just said versus your business, I can see the education and learning is about, being curious about your world because that's all education is, it's understanding it. And then obviously, this independent you. I've got a picture of you with coloured hair.
I have had many coloured hair. So
I'm
you're not.
not wrong there. Okay. So I've got a picture of the coloured hair. So and you said a sore thumb. I'm going to go with rebel because that sounds a little bit better.
Yeah.
And that's what you needed to be running your own business as well. So these have been really core skills and traits of yours to bring you to where you are today, isn't it? That's really
Yeah.
good.
I do think it's helped. I mean, I had a bit of a setback in my early 20s. So I was in sort of a bit of a domestic violence situation when I was 18, 19.
Wow.
I was in Spain at the time, and it was a big mess, and the Spanish police had to actually help me get out of the country to get back home. So that kind of undid a lot of my teenage years, sadly.
Oh,
So it
right.
took
Yeah.
a lot of my 20s to get that back again. And the whole reason for starting my business was because I had my first child when I was 20. So I wanted to be able to be there for her. I knew the important things that I'd had from my adoptive parents. They were always there for school drop-offs and pickups, always there for clubs, never missed performances. And I remembered how that made me feel and how much security that gave me as a child. So
Yes.
starting a business enabled me to be able to do that for my children. And it's still true to today that I work my business around being able to do that for the children. So it's very much shaped the business and how I approach business as well as anything else.
I love that because so many people I speak to, women particularly, have done it so that it works around children.
Yeah.
And, back in the day, I wish I'd been as insightful to be able to do that, although it wasn't quite so commonplace then.
Mm.
But, this idea that you can create your business and have the family that you've got. So when did you start the business then? I'm assuming it's this business, or was it another business at the time?
So it was another business. At the time, it was in 2012. So that business, I started this business a year ago, but this was sort of taking over the old business almost because of a difference in business model and the way I was approaching accounting in general, just because of the changes in the industry. So we've changed everything over, but it's in the same industry. It's always been accounting business. So that's sort of 11 years within that, and it's just gone from strength to strength. And something that I'm doing this year is I've actually started a degree in sort of psychology and child trauma, because again, the education and learning, I want to be able to understand myself better, how I interpret things, to be able to grow as a person and then develop as a leader within the business and sort of mentor other people within business as well. So that's continually learning, but I think it's important to sort of learn and have that self-awareness to be able to work on your personal growth as well as business. So,
And it's interesting because obviously I'm in the personal growth area. I'm about clearing stuff
yeah,
from the past, but more so trying to build the future because the brain
yeah,
is very malleable, and you'll come across all that during your training. I did psychology at A level and didn't like it because the guy who taught us, he was a temp brought in, and he was more interested in his experiments, bless him. So I sort of lost interest in it, but I've come back to it and really fascinated by it all. But I think what I'm loving is, or I want to tell people is that, to learn doesn't mean it has to be formal, although I think that's important. But it's
yeah,
learning anything, isn't it? It's about opening your mindset. Because if you're open to other things, then you start to be able to tailor that and bring that in. I'm waffling here. So let me just make that a bit clearer. I trained as a cognitive hypnotherapist in
yeah.
2010. I became qualified. And when I was training, the guy who taught us said, read outside your field. And I
Mhm.
thought, okay. Struggled a little with that. But boy, have I picked up stuff in other areas as well. And
Yeah,
funny, a lot of psychology or, neuroscience is underpinning a lot of the stuff that's being written. So I think
definitely.
it's the more you know, the better, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's always things that can be applied across different learnings, isn't there, that you can learn. So yeah,
Mm.
I think you can. I don't think we should ever stop learning, and I certainly
And
would.
you're right. Because otherwise we stagnate, and stagnation is just the fastest path to the end, basically. And let's not go there. Right. So the question then I wanted to just ask then is, what practical advice would you give people? We've talked about mindset, we've talked about reframing, but what practical advice would you offer listeners who want to start their own journey to a better state through a learning mindset? What are your key things, do you think?
Yeah, I think something that I started doing was journaling, mainly because I wanted to write down what I was feeling, what triggered that feeling, and how it impacted me. A certain feeling, like if something has happened and it's really upset me, how it kind of derails you from what you're doing. And then it takes a lot of effort to get back on track again afterwards. So just identifying the mechanisms that I've used as I go along and applying them to different challenges that have come up has really helped. So obviously everybody's going to be a little bit different in how they approach things and how it affects them. So just learning for themselves that sort of pattern, I think then can be applied and just strengthened with each time that they've got to then use that to overcome a challenge. Because it's brilliant having that community around you that can be really supportive. That's important. Getting the right sort of therapy and mindset coaching when needed. But just having that to be able to have the self-awareness from yourself, I think, is important.
And I journaling is something that I have done, and still do from time to time. I have the urge. I quite like writing, but it's for some people it's really no, can't do that. Do you have any other options? Because it's all about getting it out in some way, isn't it? So do you use anything else, or is it just the journaling?
So I did. I had also an RTT therapy session where I then, which I wouldn't say necessarily that they're going to need to go and do that, but just getting a recording back, which was tailored to the issues that I had deep rooted, was telling me that I was good enough and all these different messages to listen to every morning just to change that mindset over time. If you've listened to it enough times, it kind of sinks in a bit, doesn't it?
Yes.
But even it's just getting up and saying to yourself in the mirror what that message is that you need to hear that will set you off on the right path for the day. And aside from that, just I think when a challenge does come, just getting yourself out, going for a walk in nature, just getting right back down to basics and grounding yourself again, that it may feel overwhelming and may feel like the biggest thing in the world, but in reality, it's not. And we've got to remember that it's not the end of the world, that we can overcome it. We just need to get back and focus and ground ourselves and remember that, I think.
Yeah. And a lot of people will talk about this walking in nature. It's never been my thing. I by the sea, absolutely, but nature, all that green stuff doesn't bother me. But what I do know, and if this reframe, if you like, is this idea is that it gives us pause, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's the real value. And I never really appreciated that. But when you're out walking in nature, walking the dog or taking the kids to the park, or I mean, I'm guessing yours might be older than that, but now you don't need to take them to the park. But when you're out with them, your mind is then doing something different. It's not doing its usual stuff like in your business where you're potentially dealing with issues and having to think things through or work things out. You're giving paused and the brain needs it. And I think I love that. And I've only really, really recently understood why people love walking in nature. That was never a thing in my day. I used to get dragged around the streets walking. I'm a bit I can't help it. So I mean, would that be fair to say? Does that make sense to you? Is that how you see it?
Yeah, definitely. Just taking yourself away somewhere and just giving yourself time, just to think and reflect and not be right in the midst of whatever that challenge is. I think taking that time away is really important.
Yes,
Yeah, calm yourself down, slow the overthinking down in a lot of cases, and yeah, definitely.
Yeah, what I'm wondering here, and it wasn't one of the things I was going to ask you, but it just seems the right time. So obviously you've had quite a lot of experiences and challenges that you've been through. We've talked about some of those earlier on. That How does that translate for you when you're talking to your clients when they're facing challenges and problems in their business or in their world? How does that translate?
Um, I've I've found that because of things that I've had to overcome, there's a lot of experiences that I can apply. It's not going to be the same experiences or challenges that they're going through, but there's a lot of lessons learned that I can sort of try and talk them through or give them a different perspective on.
Yes.
Um, and I think that's a lot of the issue is that they've got one perspective. They don't know how to see it from any other angle to be able to overcome it. And I think just having somebody to talk to about other experiences, just giving them that other perspective is just really, really helpful sometimes, because it might just make them think, actually, do you know what, it's not that bad and we can get over it and come out the other side actually feeling really positive and excited for what they're going to be doing instead. Just giving that motivation, I suppose, to a thought process of how to overcome it.
Yeah, because you've been there, seen it, and done it. And I think people who have been there, seen it, and done it
Yeah.
bring an additional layer to what they do, isn't it? I'm hearing a lot about the traditional accountant and how the days are numbered for the traditional accountants, what with AI and all
Yeah,
these digital options out there. And it's things like being able to communicate with your client that makes such a difference. Would you say that's true?
definitely. So the model that we've moved to is more of a consultancy based approach, almost sort of business consultancy and accounting together, which I think being able to communicate, being able to be empathetic, being able to almost kind of put myself in their shoes and say, this is what I would do, and just sort of give them that extra layer rather than a textbook answer of this is what you should do. It's not always that black and white, is it? It's
Yeah,
saying, I've been through it and this is how I approached it. It may not work for you, but it's a different way to what you were trying. So maybe it's worth, having a go. For somebody that's walked the walk already, it's going to give that extra layer, isn't it, of just a different insight on how to approach things.
I agree. And right now, I'm guessing that your clients are going to need even more support over the next couple of years because of all the stuff that's been going on. They've been hit quite hard, haven't they? What with, I'm going to
Yeah,
go back to Brexit, but I suspect it started earlier than that, Brexit, and then we had COVID, and then we've had, wars and interest rate rises and all that good stuff. What's how are you helping them through that period then? Is it the same, or is you helping in other ways?
it's a bit of a mixture. I mean, some of it is a little bit more technical in how to plan for worst case scenarios and things like that, to be able to help them from more of a business consultancy
Yeah.
perspective, but also just trying to be there to keep motivating, because sometimes the biggest thing people struggle with is the motivation. And they always say you can't always be motivated, so you must be disciplined. But if the motivation's got to be there a lot of the time, hasn't it? And just having somebody else there saying, do you know what, you can do this, and here's the plan, and helping them work out the plan and saying, stick to the plan, you're going to be fine. And just having somebody there holding their hand through it, and that they know that we care about their success, we care about their well-being through that success. So what I'm personally passionate about is helping the business owners not only get the business success that they want, but not to the detriment of the family life and their mental health. We don't want them going through the burnout in order to achieve it. So we help them get the life they want at the same time.
Yeah, because I think there's a big thing in society where there's I don't know where it's come from. I could probably think about it. But this idea that we're responsible for everybody, not just ourselves, and we should know. We should know it. And we
Mm.
don't. Because we've already said that the only way to come through adversity is to learn through it. And if we don't do it, then if we don't go through adversity, we don't learn. So we have to rely on each other. And I don't know, somehow we've become little islands all over the place and
Yeah.
expecting to know all the answers. So Do you know what went through my head, if I can share with you? You're doing for your clients in a professional way what your grandmother did for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How
And
amazing. There's another thing there, isn't it?
yeah, and she gave me so much to be able to be the person that I am today and be able to cope with things that
Mm.
I am today. So if I can help anybody with in the same way, then
I love it. I love it because you're providing them just the support is there, but the ability to know that they're not alone. And I think we need more of that in the world right now. People who know they're not alone, particularly with businesses, obviously. So to
yeah.
lighten it a little bit, because obviously we've got a bit deep there, sorry. But it's what it's about, isn't it? It's about understanding that, you've been through some tough times and now you are able to help those going through tough times. Not the same, I get it, it's not the same
Mhm.
tough, but you've learned so many skills and more to come, which I'm very excited about. I'll have to have you back when you're done. Different conversation completely. You'll probably overwhelm me there. So one of the things I like to ask, is your favorite story as a child and how it relates to today. So while you think about that, let me explain why. One of my favorite stories was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Absolutely loved it. I was into magic and all sorts. So there was a witch, so that was good.
Yeah.
And so there was obviously magic. They stepped through the wardrobe into Narnia, and then they had to have all these fantastical creatures who talked, and I loved it. I loved it. And of course, it was good against evil, and they won. And it was, it was the community side of things. Loved it because right near the end, I don't want to ruin the story for anybody who doesn't know it, but they all the people who were probably disparate came together to fight the evil queen. And how does that relate to now? Well, it's sort of what I do now. It's, I'm out there wanting to help people so that they can, rally their own people to support them in a way that's better for them. Not in a way that they're a victim, but as in they're the cheerleader, they're the person who's leading the charge, if you like. And so it's really applicable to me now. And I never realized that until much later when I was given an exercise to do. And it was like, okay, that's interesting. So, what might yours be? And it doesn't have to be long and deep. It might be just, really just cute and it's you have fond memories of it. But what story might you have?
Um, I I think I would probably say we're going on a bear hunt.
Oh, yes.
Um, which is a lovely story. Everybody enjoys reading it because it's got that nice sort of rhyming in it.
Mm.
But I love the fact that they come across every obstacle and they work out if they can't go over it, they can't go under it. They've got to find a way around it. And I love that because I think it just kind of applies to every obstacle in life. If you can't go on the path that you were meant to or you thought you were going to go on, you just have to find another way around, find another path. And it will lead you to the same place and it might take a little bit longer, but it's about finding that other path to get around things.
Yeah. And how would you say that relates to today then? I think you've answered it, but just to be clear on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, I think it's just a case of being able to find a solution and a different path and not being scared or disappointed or upset that the path has changed. That doesn't mean anything negative, anything wrong. You've not done anything wrong. It's just changed. And the journey and the destination will be the same. You're just finding a new way to get there. And I
Mm.
think as long as you're open-minded to that, you'll always get there. It's people that hit that barrier and say, oh, I can't because this path isn't allowing me to get past, and they can't find the way around it. That's when they get stuck. So
Yeah, I love that. That's really good. And actually, what was going through my head as you were talking about it is that actually you've finished your or morphed your previous business into Innovate now, and that's a massive change, isn't it? In terms of, I got the sense you were more traditional, and now you're more consultancy. So that's really powerful that you were able to make that change because I think you're right. People do get stuck, don't they?
yeah, and they don't feel that they're able to tweak things or move in a different direction. But I think we should all just be that more open-minded that we're still doing the same thing or our vision's still the same, but sometimes along the way things change and it might be within business, it might be that the industry's changed, or as you say, like AI is coming in, that people will see it as a threat. But I'm one that will always see that sort of thing as an opportunity. How can we learn from it and how can we embrace it, rather than worrying about how that's going to take our job away or fold our business. There's always a way to embrace the new things that come and just change the direction or change the journey slightly.
Yeah. I might just, if I can, just share a story with you, which sort of
Yeah.
is the equivalent of AI, but in my generation. So back in the 80s, I say that quickly, 80s. I was working in a bank at the time, and we had computers, and I'm not kidding you, they were desk-sized computers at that point, you know, none of these little laptopy things. And we were being told then that these computers were going to save us all the time in the world, and actually we would be able to have much more free time, and la 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 la. And of course, that's not been the case until more recently. But what it did do was free up so much. And of course, there was the threat of everybody losing their jobs. But the thing is, we're humans and we find other jobs. Who would have heard of consultancy back then? Probably not many. Who would have heard of, you know, IT people and, you know, all this good stuff? Software development, none. So I think people only see humans as we are now, but we're forever evolving, aren't we?
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
AI is another tool. I always say please and thank you to it, just in case it's listening. But you know, it's a tool to get us where we need to be, and I think as long as we see it like that, then that's useful.
It can enhance what we do, but it's never going to replace that human interaction and that empathy as it is.
No, you can't hug AI, can you?
No.
So well, certainly not at the moment. Obviously I've got bots coming through. So what's the future for your practice then? You know, you're obviously embracing AI in your practice.
We are, yeah. So the idea is that we are as efficient as we can be by embracing AI. And that allows us more time to be client focused, to have the conversations and the specific advice with the client. So we can sit down on a more consultative approach and talk them through their plan. All of the sort of mundane, repetitive tasks will be taken off of us, and we'll give not only the clients that extra level of service, but it's going to be far more rewarding for the team, the job satisfaction. I think it's important for everybody to have that better quality of life out of it. So I think if we can embrace AI and it gives them that, it's far more rewarding. They're sitting there having the conversations and supporting and helping clients.
Yes.
With the bits that actually matter and the bits that are going to give the most value.
Hmm. And of course that's where we spoke earlier. That's the real value that you're bringing, isn't it? It's all your experiences that you're bringing to the table as much as all the stuff that AI will provide. Yeah. So where do you see yourself in 12 months' time?
So me personally, I know where the business is going, and I at the moment work 2 days a week on the business. For me, in the new year, I'm launching a charity, which is specifically going to provide private therapy to children that have been in care. So obviously something close to my own heart.
Yes,
I know the therapy just isn't good enough what they get out of. It's almost like there's a narrative of, if you've been in care, you're pretty much written off. You're not going to make anything of yourself.
really?
Yeah, very much so. And I've spoken to a lot of people recently that have been on the other side, and they're the people that have adopted the children. They get no support whatsoever, but they're also being told the worst case scenarios as part of the adoption process. It almost feels as if they're trying to be put off. And my adoptive mum now fosters, so she's a foster carer now. And she said the level of training and support she gets as a foster carer is phenomenal, but the adoption process, they don't. It's just, take these children that have been in care and we'll leave you to it. And I think they just need that extra support for the parents to sort of know more about the issues that they're going to come across and how to sort of balance that out if that's possible. And just provide that additional therapy, because I'd love to be able to support even one child that's been in care to not feel that that's it for life. just to know that that's happened to them, but it doesn't define who they are. So whatever they want to achieve, they can achieve it. They just have to have that self-belief and confidence, which takes work. But I think if they get the right therapy, I think that they can achieve that and go on to have a better quality of life outside of it. So that's what my passion is to try and achieve in 2024.
Oh,
Hopefully.
that sounds awesome. Brilliant. And, if happy to support that where I can. Certainly I know a few people who've worked with, I don't work with very young children, but I've worked with teenagers before, but they've got to be
Yeah.
open to it. But you're going to learn so much during your degree as well that's going to support you in what you're going to do. So, if I
Yeah,
can connect you with anyone, let me know. So that
definitely. Yeah.
sounds very exciting. So how far off are you? Are you starting to do it, or is it ready to launch
So
in?
the charity is set up. I'm speaking to some people early January that have sort of launched the charities within that sector before. And I've got sort of local charities that I'm speaking to, which is like Suffolk and Norfolk Mind, Essex Mind, that are mental health organisations anyway, but they'll be able to, if nothing else, they'll be able to support me in how I go about finding something that's a little bit more specific to sort of trauma-based therapy and things like that. So it is early stages still, because I just want to make sure that all of the research has gone into how we're going to 100% be able to pull it off. I know what I want the outcome to be, but some of that is just speaking to some specialists about how we put the wheels in motion, really.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge because it's a tough marketplace right now, isn't it? Charities
Yeah.
fighting for investment and so forth. So yeah. Well, if I can help, let me know. I would love to. And that sounds really exciting, definitely. So we'll have to have you come back when you've got it all sorted out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Zoe, thank you so much for sharing what you've done today and how you've got to where you are. It has been an incredible journey, and you're still so very young. You've still got, your whole life going ahead as well. So you've got so much more you can achieve, and got some goals to go towards it. If there were any parting comments, is there anything else that you think our viewers might need to know?
I think just make sure that you can be open-minded to every challenge that comes up and be open to learning from it, and don't take it personally. And yeah, just reframe it as, what is this trying to teach me, rather than why is this happening to me? Because
Yeah.
it was you.
Yeah, it is. You're right. Well, thank you very much, Zoe. Thank you very much for listening in, viewers and listeners, and watch out for the next podcast coming up soon. Thank you.
Thank you.